This is why you should be careful what you put in the mail. In 2015, a man was asked by his neighbor to collect his mail while he was gone for a few weeks. A few days later, a large package arrives on his neighbor's front porch. The man can barely lift it, but gets over to his garage where he accidentally drops it and hears something break inside. Hoping his neighbor would think the damage occurred en route, he closes his squeaky garage door and forgets about it. But over the next couple of days, whatever was in that package started to smell so bad that he decides to open it up. Inside were two very important finds: his neighbor, who was dead, and a camera that was still recording. The police bring the man in for questioning and show him what was on the camera inside the box. It starts with his neighbor talking to the camera about how excited he is to mail himself home for his YouTube channel. Then, police fast forward to the very end where they see that the neighbor is now sleeping in the box, and then suddenly gets dropped and you hear a crack, and that's his neck breaking. And then you hear a squeaky garage door close.
I wasn't gonna do my makeup, but my skin kind of looks like shit, so let's do makeup in a story time. When I was 16, I started dating this 23-year-old guy. I normally dated older guys, and my parents knew about him and weren't concerned, so I wasn't really concerned about the whole predator thing. Eventually, I moved into his house with him, and everything was great. I was so happy. A little while later, I come home one day, and I see a note on our door. The note read, "This is not your house. Get your stuff and leave today." I didn't know what to do, so I called my boyfriend immediately. I noticed there was an old man who was the neighbor, just kind of staring at me as I'm standing on the porch on the phone with my boyfriend. Turns out he was the one who left the note on our door. He started walking towards me and I instantly got scared. This is the time when he realized that I had no idea what was going on. And when he started explaining it to me, I had no idea what to believe. What he said to me truly caught me by surprise. Come back for part 2. Part 2. The man came over to me and basically explained that this wasn't my boyfriend's house. When I had first moved in, my boyfriend told me that it was his house that his aunt and uncle let him live in, that it was technically theirs, but they had no use for it, so they were letting him fix it up and live in it. What this neighbor told me was so different. Turns out it wasn't my boyfriend's aunt and uncle's house that he was fixing up for them. Turns out it was an older couple's house who'd been moved to a nursing facility, so they didn't live there anymore and no one was there to take care of the house, which is why it looked so run down. My boyfriend knew this and found a way to get in and convinced me that it was his house. Turns out we were squatters. If you don't know what a squatter is, basically it's just someone who lives in your house. Someone who's like homeless and just kind of like lives under your porch or in your attic or something. Someone who lives in a house that they don't actually own. Come back for part 3, there's even more. Part 3. So basically at this point we end up grabbing all of our stuff and we move into my parents' house. One night my friends invited me to a party and my boyfriend decided to stay at my parents' house and I went out to this party. Well, eventually at some point during the party the cops end up getting called. So I call my boyfriend to come and pick me up because I'm drunk. And a girl answers the phone. And little did I know, this man had a whole secret family behind my back. He had a whole child with a girl that he had been on and off with for probably about 4 years at this point. And while I was at this party, he was with her and their son. So at this point, I call my friend to come and pick me up from the party and take me home. I recruit my friends to help me when I get home to kick him out of the house. It wasn't a big deal to me that he had a kid. It was a big deal to me that he was still with the baby mom and didn't tell me. Come back for part 4, it gets even crazier. So my friends and I get back to my house and we get up to my room and we start clearing out all of his stuff into trash bags. I'm cleaning out the top drawer of the dresser when I move some of his stuff and I find 4 loaded heroin syringes. I'm so shocked and so disgusted and taken aback. I never knew this man struggled with drug addiction. And to bring it into my house and hide it and not tell me is where I drew the line. I was planning on just keeping his stuff and letting him come and pick it up decently. But after finding the drugs, I wouldn't let him. I put all of his stuff at the end of the driveway and I told him he could pick it up whenever he wanted, but it looked like it was gonna rain. He came and got his stuff and I didn't hear from him for a couple weeks. But after him and his baby mom fell apart, he hit me up again. And me being the dumb 16-year-old, I went back. One more part, I swear, and then we're done. Papav. So I end up taking him back like an idiot. And he asked me to come over to a friend's house where he's staying. So I go over and I notice immediately something's off. Turns out, he's high. And this was the first and only time he's ever hit me. I wanted to leave because I was scared and I was uncomfortable. I didn't know what he was gonna do when he was under the influence, but he didn't want me to leave. He said he was in the midst of like a panic attack or something and he needed me to ground him. We got in a huge disagreement and that's when he did it. This is what I left with. Some more minor details went down after that, but I haven't talked to him since. Please understand that if you're 16 years old and a guy who's in his mid-20s is interested in you, it's not because you're mature. It's because he's either a pedophile or he knows he can manipulate you and use you. Be safe and be kind. Know your worth. Hey y'all, so my friends and I get back to my house and we get up to my room and we start clearing out all of his stuff into trash bags. I'm cleaning out the top drawer of the dresser when I move some of his stuff and I find 4 loaded heroin syringes. I'm so shocked and so disgusted and taken aback. I never knew this man struggled with drug addiction. And to bring it into my house and hide it and not tell me is where I drew the line. I was planning on just keeping his stuff and letting him come and pick it up decently. But after finding the drugs, I wouldn't let him. I put all of his stuff at the end of the driveway and I told him he could pick it up whenever he wanted, but it looked like it was gonna rain. He came and got his stuff and I didn't hear from him for a couple weeks. But after him and his baby mom fell apart, he hit me up again. And me being the dumb 16-year-old, I went back. One more part, I swear, and then we're done. Papav. So I end up taking him back like an idiot. And he asked me to come over to a friend's house where he's staying. So I go over and I notice immediately something's off. Turns out, he's high. And this was the first and only time he's ever hit me. I wanted to leave because I was scared and I was uncomfortable. I didn't know what he was gonna do when he was under the influence, but he didn't want me to leave. He said he was in the midst of like a panic attack or something and he needed me to ground him. We got in a huge disagreement and that's when he did it. This is what I left with. Some more minor details went down after that, but I haven't talked to him since. Please understand that if you're 16 years old and a guy who's in his mid-20s is interested in you, it's not because you're mature. It's because he's either a pedophile or he knows he can manipulate you and use you. Be safe and be kind. Know your worth.
Storytime Tinder edition. Okay, the story blew up on Twitter like a while ago, but I'm just gonna retell it because it's very informational. So there was this guy and this girl, and they met through Tinder, and then they met up and they went on this date. And they were out at dinner, and then she starts not feeling so well. And then she says, I really need to go home. And he says, yeah, I'll drive you home. And she says, okay. So then they get to her house, and then she starts feeling better. So then she says, do you want to come in for some coffee? And then he says, yeah, sure. So they go inside, they have their coffee, and then she doesn't feel well again. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't feel well again. I think you really need to leave. And he's like, okay. And he leaves. And then she goes to bed, and in the middle of the night, she wakes up, and she hears this noise down in her kitchen. And so she locks her door, and she calls the cop. And the 911 operator is just on the other line saying, can you just stay on the line until the cops get there? And then the cops get there, and they're like, the door is locked. Like, we don't think anyone's inside. And she's like, I promise you, someone's inside my house. I can hear them. She says, you have my permission to break down the door. So she's still up in her room, and then she hears the cops break down the door. And then she hears some rustling and some fighting. Part 2 coming now.
So this is the story about a time I dated a sociopath. I went to a friend of mine's birthday party and met this guy. He was really cute, we made great conversation, and he also had a job at a really well-known store. However, I was flirting with his friend a lot more, which I think actually is what attracted him to me. With each bar we went to, he kept trying to get closer and closer to me, and by the end of the night, he asked for my number. I said sure, and a few days later, he called me and asked me out on a date. We decided to go for a hike, and this is where the weird interactions start. He brought up the fact that I'm going into counseling, and that's what attracted him to me because he feels like no one can figure him out. He talked about how sales is the best job for him because he can always temporarily put on masks for people and be whatever a person wants him to be. But it only lasts for so long. He could never keep a relationship for more than 3 months. He said he couldn't keep up the act of what the other girls wanted him to be. Not long after this, I got a call from his cousin who I'd never spoken to before telling me to get out. Follow, share, and I'll do a part 2. Alright, this is part 2 to the sociopath story. So that was extremely sus of a cousin to be calling whenever I hadn't even met him before. He expressed that this was a pattern for him. To find girls, date them for a while, infiltrate their life, and then leave them and have no guilt. He also expressed on multiple occasions that he's never felt heartbreak before, even though he's had multiple breakups. The girl that he was with before me had multiple kids. He came into her life, pretended to be a dad figure for a little bit, and then left her. I didn't know that story till later, but I was horrified. I continued to go on a few more dates with him, and he told me everything I wanted to hear. He would talk about spending holidays, meeting my family, potentially buying a house for us, and I just got sucked right into it like probably everyone else was. Then a few hours after we had a really good date, he called to say he was confused if this was the right timing for us or not. I just kind of accepted it and was like, okay. However, a day later, he started dating my best friend's little sister, who was freshly out of high school, and this man's 27. And that's just what he does. He just gets off to the heartbreak because he emotionally can't understand it. Follow from our story times.
When I was like 5 years old, I almost got kidnapped. Story time. So back in the day, it used to be safe for kids to play out on the street. Or so I thought. You know, when you're a little kid, you really don't listen to your parents. Well, anyways, what happened was that my mom was cooking. And I was like, Mommy, please, 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 let me play outside with my new scooter. My mom was always very protective, so she would not let us out of her sight. She's like, I'm going to go outside for 2 minutes with you, and then we're going to come right back inside. I was like, yay! So I'm just over here playing outside. And my mom was like, se me queman las tortillas, se me queman las tortillas. For those who don't know, that means she was burning tortillas. She's like, sit on the steps here in the driveway. You know me being a dumb little child. I was like, let me see how fast I can go. Whee! Here I go with my scooter. I'm still in the driveway. This man and this woman are walking across the street. Then that creepy man was like, hey, come here. That woman was like, I just want to see your scooter. I dropped that scooter and I said, skirt. They started running after me up my driveway.
So today, we're gonna try a new makeup product. But I'm gonna tell you guys right now, this is gonna be such a controversial video of mine. And in advance, I'm not sorry. So this company, called Kempa, they have a high-density brush for $14.95 that they sent me. Asked me to review it for them. Gave me a coupon code to give to y'all so y'all can get a discount. And I was like, okay, but I'm letting you know right now, I'm gonna give you a really honest review. Hard limit for me, no questions asked. You cannot persuade me to give you a good review just because you asked. Because I believe in being fully transparent and honest with y'all. So I get the product in the mail, right? And it's listed as a brand name Jocelina's. And I'm like, let me look that up. Y'all, it is listed on Amazon, right here, for $5.98. It is really the same exact product. To the company who sent this to me, you made a mistake when you did that. I'm not the one. I'm not giving out a coupon code because everybody could get it much cheaper on Amazon. But the product does have great reviews, so I am still gonna review it just for the actual company. How crazy.
Toxic best friend story time. So I had an off and on friendship with this one girl. In my freshman year, we became friends again. And she had this boyfriend named Nicholas. And they literally fought 24/7. And every time she would fight, she would be like, can you please fix this for me? So she would have me add him on Snapchat, fix it, and then block him. And guys, this literally was happening like 5 times a week. And then after she asked me to do that the first few times, I realized she started going through my phone. And when I say my phone, I mean my whole motherfucking phone. A bitch was going through my Snapchats, DMs, text messages, and I didn't know how to confront her because that's just weird. So the one day I was getting ready at her house because we were about to go out. And she was like, I'm grounded. Can I use your phone real quick? And I was like, yeah, just let me Snapchat this last person back. And she goes, no, and rips the phone out of my hand. And she starts going through my Snapchat right in front of me. And I had a streak with this kid named Nick. She goes up to me and says, what the fuck is this? Like for part 2.
This is why you should always lock your doors. A class was playing a game of Kahoot when they heard a voice on the intercom say, this is not a drill, go into lockdown. The students huddled in the back of the classroom and then the power went off. Minutes later, the students heard the sound of a man screaming at the top of his lungs, running down the hallway. The lunatic man started banging on the lockers and his screams gradually got louder. He then started banging on the classroom window, yelling, open up. He eventually left, and 10 minutes later, a voice on the intercom said, a mentally ill person had entered the school and attacked the lady at the front desk. The staff did a sweep of the school and still couldn't find him, so they locked the doors and resumed class. Later that night, one of the janitors went into the utility closet when this happened.
One time I was at the dinner table when I was like 6, because I had to be. My dad goes, "How was school today?" I said, "It was good, but someone pushed Tyler off the seesaw." "And where were you?" "I was over on the bench." "And what did you do?" "Nothing, I was over on the bench." "But you saw what happened?" "Yeah, because I was over on the bench." "So you saw what happened and you did nothing?" "Yeah, because I was sitting over on the bench." Let me ask you this. In Nazi Germany, when people saw what the Nazis were doing and they did nothing, were those good people? "Oh no, those are bad people. You gotta stop the Nazis." But you saw what they were doing to Tyler and you did nothing because I was over on the bench.
So one day my parents were throwing a pool party and they invited my crush's family. So he kind of had to come. Probably didn't want to. So then it was time. Everyone was about to go in the pool and then they were like, "Oh my god, who's gonna be the first one to jump in? Who's the brave one?"
So I was like, "I'm the brave one. It's me."
So I decided to do a cartwheel into the pool to make a dramatic appearance. Guess what? No. I didn't land in the pool. No. So I was just on my stomach bouncing from the cartwheel because I guess it was like a lot of power. And I look up at him and he's like, "Oh, did you guys see that?" "Oh my god, Anthony, you're so smart. You're so smart." Yes, we saw. I fell and landed like a tortilla.